this proposal from Macron, it just seemed detached from reality.
There's a tendency, especially here in the United States, to talk about Europe as if it were a united whole. Uh, and Europe is just a collection of countries that have, in some cases, the same interest, but in other cases don't have the same interest. And that means that whenever a bunch of countries like that get together to deal with a problem like Ukraine, it's going to be collective action problems, getting everybody on the same page. And when the United States is involved, deeply involved, it largely solves the collective action problems because it's so big, so powerful, and it's willing to do so much of the heavy lifting. But if you take the Americans out, and that's apparently what's happening here, or at least you reduce greatly the influence of the United States in Europe, and the Europeans are not on their own, but close to being on their own, then you see these fractious forces become manifest. And I would just note that if you look at the various meetings that they've had recently, the Europeans, they've been in two places. One is Paris and the other is Britain. And the reason is because it's the British and the French who are working with the Ukrainians, and everybody else is sort of taking a back seat. So it's not Europe, it's really kind of the British and the French and the Ukrainians. I like to refer to them as the Three Musketeers, right? They're working hard. But the Poles, who have spent the most money on defense in Europe and who have a big army, have said they will not deploy any troops in Ukraine. The Germans have effectively said that so far. The Italians have told the French that they don't want the French making any commitments to put Italian troops into Ukraine for peacekeeping purposes. So you see, even in terms of creating a peacekeeping force or coming up with some sort of ceasefire agreement, it's really the British and the French working with the Ukrainians. It's not the Europeans or Europe, because there is no Europe, and also because the Europeans have different views. And I would argue, my final point here, that as time goes by, those different views, those centrifugal forces will become increasingly powerful.
I completely agree. I think that is completely correct.